Hey, and welcome back to Rowing with the Homies, where I am dedicated to establishing a healthy exercise routine and discussing current events and big ideas and exploring mental health. I'm Finlos, and I really appreciate you being here with me today. Today is April 28th, 2025. And let's get started with what's been on my mind. And to be honest, this podcast and my exercise has been on my mind. So I've been podcasting for a while, and I've wanted to do this kind of a process program for a while to sort of marry something that is easier for me to do regularly, something that is easier to access, at least with the podcasting. The barrier to entry seems easier, like it's a creative thing, so it's tough, but it's also like really rewarding and gratifying. But marrying that with something that I enjoy, but something that is harder to do with regularity, which is exercise. And I've been curious about why. Why is establishing an exercise routine so damn hard? We know the benefits of it. It feels good. It is similarly immediately gratifying in that our health gets better, we feel better. We're using our bodies in this way can be a pleasurable thing, and even if it hurts sometimes, that's a reward in and of itself. But I've really been looking into why it can be so difficult to start exercising, and not just starting, but sticking with it, because again, we all know and understand the benefits of regular physical activity for our physical and mental health. I mean, exercise lowers cardiovascular disease, helps us to live longer. It's mentally therapeutic. It helps mood, helps us to sleep better. It helps alleviating depression and anxiety and stress. And yet, despite this common knowledge, many adults still struggle to meet recommended physical activity levels or practices. And there are definite obstacles. So I've kind of done a little digging, a little reading for my own edification, honestly, because I've lost weight with support from my partner, Eva. We were very successful about 15 years ago in establishing very healthy routines and changing our diet and really getting into good shape. And we maintained it for a long time. So I know it's possible. But why? Why is it so hard? Some recent research provides insights into the challenge. I think a lot of these things seem pretty clear, but I still think it's helpful to walk through what the barriers are, so that if you are like me and you struggle to stick with it, just to know that you're not alone. And I think probably one of the biggest barriers, and one that I don't think is given enough weight, is time. I think that time is one of the greatest luxuries that isn't talked about very much. Our time is often stripped from us for various different demands, responsibilities, and things that we actually want to do. Work, family, social interactions. And as we sort of carve up our days to find ways to meet all of these things, we then look to the remaining time to try to figure out how can we best use it. And oftentimes we want to relax. We want to wind down from the day. We want to have quiet time to ourselves. We want to read a book. We want to do something that is fun. And that might make us feel as if there's insufficient time for exercise. And data shows that adult women in particular frequently balance their employment, household duties and responsibilities, and caregiving, which in turn limits their available time for physical activity. And it's even worse for fully employed women with children, because oftentimes due to social constraints and a lot of unrecognized labor, that the responsibilities that they feel in terms of maintaining the household ends up being a greater demand on their time, which doesn't leave any time for exercise. And so for people who have this perceived lack of time, they tend to allocate time to the activities that they value more, which I guess when we think about it means that I guess exercise just isn't valued or prioritized. And that's interesting. There's also a lot of psychological barriers. I think motivation is first and foremost. We need to have a good reason, at least we think we should, or it makes sense that we would have some sort of motive. Motivation is essential for both starting and continuing exercise. Self-determination theory suggests that a lack of interest in exercise or undervaluing its outcomes can lead to low motivation. Many individuals might not find exercise inherently interesting, or might not find it, or might not fully appreciate its benefits in order to make it a priority. Low self-efficacy or a lack of confidence in one's ability to be active physically is another significant barrier. And research suggests that women with lower confidence in their fitness levels are less likely to participate in regular, structured exercise programs. If physical activity isn't enjoyable, or it's perceived as boring, starting it at all is less likely. And an aversion to exercise, a lack of pleasure in the practice, are significant hurdles. And then there's, of course, the very present reality that body image concerns and fear of judgment, especially in public settings like gyms, can also deter people from starting. So why not do it at home like I am? Well, I mean, there are expenses and costs that come with being able to exercise at home, having the equipment, having the tools, and of course, there are body weight programs. There are many number of self-guiding practices that people can utilize, but without a program to guide you through it, it can feel scattershot and it can feel hit or miss. And while it might seem interesting at first, it's likely not going to last. To continue along that line, there are socioeconomic and environmental limitations, which also present considerable challenges. Gym memberships are not cheap. Fitness equipment are luxury items and therefore cost a premium. Having a trainer adds more money on top of that. And if you are in a situation with limited finances, then you're really dependent upon your ability to train yourself, teach yourself, coach yourself, and learn the practices and develop your own routine, which is, it just makes it even harder. And this is really an equality issue, because there should be, we would think, access to safe and convenient facilities like parks, sidewalks, bike trails, public fitness centers that anybody can access. And while many towns and cities might have them, they're probably going to be more numerous, easier to access, better maintained, safer in places where the community can afford to pay more and are in wealthier neighborhoods. Internal barriers related to physical and mental health also play a significant role. If we live with pain, discomfort, chronic illnesses, persistent injuries, all of these things can present barriers to sustained exercise practices. Again, if we have somebody who's a professional who can help us develop low impact routines, that's great. But when it's just us and we injure ourselves, re-injure ourselves, or discover an injury that we had forgotten about, or maybe we didn't realize was there, suddenly the exercise routine is no longer an option. And mental health conditions can also impede exercise initiation. Depression and anxiety can lead to that lack of motivation to get started, lower energy levels, and that mood in itself is a significant hurdle. And finally, there are external barriers related to social and community influences, which can't be overlooked. Like many things as humans, exercise is often more successful when done as part of a community with support from community. And so if there's a lack of social support from family or friends, that might diminish the success of any routine. If we don't have encouragement or support, companionship, somebody to engage with, it can make it harder to start and stick to an exercise program. Of course, there are cultural norms and gender norms which can discourage exercise participation, particularly for women in some contexts. And of course, again, body image issues themselves, sometimes the reasons why we want to start exercise to begin with, to feel better about ourselves, can also serve as a barrier, either because we're too embarrassed or too ashamed to do it at all and be seen, or because our own bodies are the limiting factor. that gets me thinking. As I reflect on these challenges, it really makes me thankful, and it solidifies why I wanted to start this project, not just the podcast, but specifically rowing with the homies. Because, yes, I enjoy the technical part of creating the podcast, the audio, the sound, the editing. But this particular program is a key part of my personal strategy for building and maintaining a healthy exercise routine. Knowing that I have a commitment to this process, to the audience that gives me their valuable time in listening, knowing that by listening you're showing that there is some value in what I'm doing, it creates a sense of accountability for me. It is kind of like having a regular appointment that I need to show up for, which in turn motivates me to stay informed, to do research, and to consider my own habits. I know that as I've missed a few of my intended rowing sessions over these past couple of weeks, I have felt the pressure to not backslide, to not lose the momentum that I've started to build. And while I have yet to see really, or feel really, any significant progress in terms of my fitness, this process is extremely rewarding. And it has been very gratifying and revealing to examine myself and my own processes as I engage with building a routine. And it keeps me honest and authentic to make sure that it stays real. Also, the process of doing research and reading the news, which I do anyways, but to think about the stories, the topics, the ideas that I want to share with each episode is motivation as well. I dive into studies. I do follow-up research. I try to provide meaningful commentary. And that process is a powerful reminder and encouraging me to prioritize my workouts, even when I feel, or I might not feel particularly motivated on a given day. Creating the podcast fosters a sense of community for me. I don't obsess over listener counts or anything, but knowing that there's a handful of folks out there who consistently listen, it really creates a feeling of connection. Sharing my own journey, including the difficulties, it makes me feel less isolated in this process. Especially my partner Eva, who gives me a lot of feedback and is my most dedicated supporter and listener. It is encouraging to think that we are working towards similar goals, even if we can't necessarily hear each other in the process. Rowing with the homies has definitely evolved into more than just a subset of my podcast shows. It is an essential component of my plan to maintain focused and committed to remaining physically fit and healthy. It provides, I think, structure and routine, purpose, and all of these things become continuous sources of learning and reinforcement for the process. So, as we discuss the difficulties of starting exercise, I encourage you to think about what provides that inherent motivation and accountability in your own life. Do you have a workout buddy? Do you wear a fitness tracker or a watch? Or do you write a daily log of your sleep, your calories? Do you have a personal challenge for yourself? Whatever it is, it's important that you have that anchor, that reference point, which can make all the difference in turning good intentions into lasting good habits. And that brings me to my closing segment. And today, depression feels like. Before I begin though, remember that my experience of depressive symptoms are singular and not representative of other people's. I am not a professional mental health practitioner. If you are experiencing crisis or if you need help, please speak to somebody, reach out, find somebody to talk to. And today, depression feels like the weight of self-sabotage. I really want to explore how depression can manifest as the really frustrating experience of self-sabotage, particularly when it relates to adopting healthy habits, and specifically exercise routines. And as we've talked about, depression often leads to a feeling of a lack of energy and motivation, and even simple tasks can start to feel overwhelming. And so the idea of starting something new, like an exercise routine, can just seem insurmountable. It's especially disheartening when we are aware that exercise has the potential to improve our mood and overall well-being. It creates painful internal conflict. We know it can help, but we feel incapable of taking that first step. And that feeling of wanting to care for ourselves, understanding that exercise could be beneficial, yet feeling unable to initiate the activity, is a core aspect of self-sabotage that is often experienced with those who live with depression or other types of depression-like symptoms. It's an invisible force holding us back and preventing us from engaging in behaviors that we know would be good for us. It's not laziness. It's not having a lack of willpower. It's often a direct consequence of the illness itself, which can affect our ability to experience pleasure and our desire and drive to engage in any activity, let alone something that demands as much focus and persistence as exercise. And so the frustration that arises from the cycle of starting and stopping, of wanting to but not being able to, can be incredibly difficult to manage. We might feel guilty, we might feel ashamed for not being able to just get it done, get to it. And that only further compounds the negative feelings associated with depression. It's really essential to remember that it's not a personal failing. It is a part of the condition. When faced with self-sabotage of this kind, it's really important to practice self-compassion and to focus on making small, manageable changes. Instead of aiming for a strenuous workout, maybe the goal should be just to walk around the block. Maybe it's just putting on your shoes and your exercise clothes, even if you don't end up getting out the door, because every small step can be and is a victory and should be acknowledged. And really, it is probably the most important thing, the most helpful thing, to find support, to find those who can cheer you on, who can help you make plans and goals, who can help to hold you accountable, but who can also be compassionate. Talk to a friend, talk to a therapist, find a community who can provide encouragement and help break down that feeling of isolation that often accompanies depression and self-sabotage. You don't have to navigate this alone. That wraps up today's episode of Growing with the Homies. Remember, taking that initial step towards a healthier routine can be incredibly challenging. But understanding the obstacles and finding what works for you is key. Lean on your support systems, be patient with yourself, and keep on rowing. If you have comments or questions, or maybe suggestions for future topics, feel free to suggest them. Or if you'd like to talk to me about my routine and how maybe we can work together, you can email me at finlos@finloslives.com. Find me on social media or visit finloslives.com. And I look forward to our next conversation.